Welcome to Solutions with Sagamore, a podcast produced by the Sagamore Institute that features solution-oriented conversations about key issues facing communities throughout Indiana, the United States, and the world. I'm your host, Tim Swearens. In this episode, Sagamore Fellow Alan Dowd continues our conversation with former U.S. Senator Dan Coats and his wife Marsha about their lifetime of public service, as well as their new book, From Generation to Generation. Alan, will you reintroduce the Senator and Marsha to our listeners?
Sure can. Thank you, Tim. Good to be here, and thanks for hosting us. From ordinary beginnings in the very middle of Middle America, Dan and Marsha Coats have lived an extraordinary life. Dan calls it an unplannable, unpredictable life in this book, From Generation to Generation. Dan Coats, of course, was a congressman, senator, ambassador, and director of national intelligence. Dan and Marsha have been a team in their public and private life, of course, for 50 years serving Hoosiers and Americans. And it's such a treat to have them here and have them share with us a few minutes of their time as we do a second part of our interview. So much interesting things to discuss from the book that we needed to do two parts in this interview. So thanks for sitting with us for another segment. Dan, you mentioned in the book, you're very candid in the book, and that's one of the great things about the book. You both are very open, very genuine, and no airs or masks about you throughout the book. But Dan, you're very candid in the book in what, for lack of a better term, self-criticism about the way you struggled adjusting after retiring from the Senate. And you reflect that too much of your identity at that time was tied up with having a title, with being part of what you called the DC in group, the people in the power circles. Could you talk with us, with our listeners, about how you coped with that and ultimately got past that? It would seem to be a very difficult transition. You'd been serving for 25 years by then.
Well, if you're in Washington, D.C., working for the government and being a congressman, being a senator, being a director of national intelligence, anyway, you're in sort of the in group. Mm-hmm. Like, it's really, really important in terms of what you do.
Right.
And when you step down from that, all of a sudden, as a friend of mine, another congressman said, there's nothing more X than being a foreign, no longer part of the in group. Yeah. And in my situation, came to the point where I was really so tired of raising money and back and forth and so forth and so on. And I stepped down, and Marsha didn't think I should do that. Thinking now, if I had to do it over again, I might change my mind. As the one thing that she really didn't agree with, and I think she should say her on that. But nevertheless, once I stepped down, I had the opportunity, at least I thought I had the opportunity, to being elected as Secretary of Defense. Mm-hmm. That was up my alley. I was on the right committees. I really, really enjoyed working with our military and so forth. And the Washington Post on a Sunday said, front page, Dan Coats, most likely next Secretary of Defense.
And this is 2000, by the way, for the listeners. We're talking about the Bush 43 administration.
That is correct. Yeah. And but that didn't turn out to be. Donald Rumsfeld was selected by Dick Cheney. I had been kind of led and thought I would be the one, and all of a sudden I wasn't. So I'm now out. I'm out of the in.
Right.
But I had to learn that basically having a title that you're the in is not the kind of person that you want to be. You want to. We committed our life to Christ. Obviously, this was a door that was shut, and we just took the position that God doesn't want us there. Right. Just a few months after that, President Bush wanted us to be ambassador to Germany, and we said yes. That was another open door.
Right.
And I think that's one of the most interesting and really fulfilling time, almost 4 years as ambassador. Marsha and I were a great team on that. They loved her over there, and her picture was in the papers more than mine. Who's that other guy with her?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the ambassador.
Yeah.
But once again, she just worked in there. We were a team,
Right.
and the Germans received that. 9/11 was the second day on the job, and everything changed then. And the American ambassador was looked at as the person to bring us together, and we did come together with Germany, and we did have a good back and forth and so forth.
Could I just interject that Alan's question was about the importance of a title, and if that was truly important, then a lot of people in the country would feel left out. But in my opinion, a title really doesn't mean that much at all, because what people do is important, whether if they're teaching school, that's very important.
We're raising a
If
family.
you are a policeman, or if you're a businessman, or whatever role God calls you to, if you do it with the belief that you are running a race that God has set before you, then it gives importance to even smaller things that some people might think aren't important, but they make an impression on people for better or for worse. So I think every one of us has the responsibility to do whatever it is we're called to do to the best of our ability, and try to be the best ambassador for Christ that we can be. And I guess that became very clear to me in Germany, because we were the American couple in Berlin, and people looked to us, and I recognized that everything I said, even the way I dressed, the way I acted, whether I was in a good mood or a bad mood that day, people noticed it. Well, that's true here in the United States. That's true for every one of us. Every day, if we view our role as being ambassadors for Christ, then it lends importance to whatever it is we're doing.
And that becomes the most important, much more than the title.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's stick with Germany, Marsha. Let's stick with you on this question. There's a wonderful section in the book, in one of the chapters on Germany. You both share the story about Angela Merkel, who would become chancellor after you left. But it was very important when she got on your radar screen for you personally, and this speaks to Dan's point about how you were a team and how you were a real leader in Germany when you were there in Berlin and posted there. Could you share a little of that story of how you connected with this member of the Bundestag at the time and this rising star, and how you ended up connecting her with President Bush? Could you share a little of that?
Yes. We met her early on, and she's not was not so impressive when just meeting her, but I wanted to use the residence, which was a beautiful old German house in the Dahlem part of Berlin, and it's the part that the U.S. Army occupied after the war. And the house provided us with 2 chefs, a full staff of servants, butlers, laundress. They provided us with seamstresses to make sure our clothes fit properly. I mean, I've never been so well taken care of as those 3.5 years in Germany. But I thought, I've got all this at our disposal, so why not have a breakfast for the female members of the Bundestag and invite them to come for breakfast and have just a little devotional time. That way, they know that this is what Americans like to do, and hopefully it'll make an impression on them, and I'll get to know them too. So I invited them, and they came, and we started doing that once a month. And I would ask different ones of them to be the speaker for that morning. And so when Angela Merkel spoke, she was so clear, so logical. And maybe because she was a quantum chemist, she got her degree in that, and she was a researcher. So she was a very cerebral person. She didn't care about makeup or jewelry, or she had not such a great haircut, in my opinion. But she didn't dress in a flashy way at all. But when she spoke, you really were impressed with her intelligence and her understanding of Germany and America, our different backgrounds and our different problems and issues. So I was impressed with her. And then when she decides, anytime I had a chance to need a speaker at our residence, I would invite her. And then when she decided she wanted to run for chancellor, she wanted to have a chance to meet President Bush, because all the other candidates that were running for chancellor were meeting with him. And it would put her at a disadvantage, like somehow she wasn't important, she wasn't on the radar. So Dan was not going to do anything about it. He was just going to let whatever happened play out. And I said, no, you've got to help her. You've got to call President Bush and tell him he must meet with her, because his people were saying that she didn't have a chance. And you resisted that a little bit. But I really...
well, I did a little bit, and then I said,
I convinced
okay,
you. Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I called him.
Because I reminded him that the president had said, anytime there's something important, call me. So this is important. This is important for the future of Germany and our relationship with Germany. So you did, and it worked out that she met with him, and he was very impressed, and she went on to win. And so I was very vindicated and very happy about that.
And Dan, jumping off from there, could you share a little with our listeners about President Bush's reaction with that meeting off the side of an event that wasn't supposed to happen?
Well, first, President Bush said that my people here say she doesn't have that chance. And I mentioned what Marsha just said, and he finally gave in and said, okay, we'll meet with her when I'm over there in Germany. And so, but to speak and just try to set aside, but I don't want any pictures, no
press,
TV, everything just slip away. Mm-hmm. And so we worked out so that he could get in another room with her alone. And just for 5 minutes, I said, Mr. President, just 5 minutes. I know she would like to meet with you. He said, okay, if you can work it out. So, like the other guys that are running and so forth and so on. I said, I know, but you've never met this. And she just wanted to meet with you. And he said, yes, we'll do it. If you set it up, all right. So we slipped him in, and the other person that was running went up to the audience while he was in there. So as we were walking, I was walking him into the room. He said, look, 5 minutes. It's all. I said, you want me to come in and knock on the door or anything? No, don't do anything. Don't knock on the door. I'm just going to do 5 minutes. I said, okay, I want, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. people are running up to me. Where's the president? Where's the president? They were standing. He needs to be up front. I said, he told me shouldn't go in there. 20 minutes. Finally, he came out and looked at me and said, "That is some woman."
Mm-hmm. Just as Marsha had said.
Yes.
Yeah. Great story. Wonderful story.
Well, thankfully, you spoke up and you listened to your wife. So kudos to both of you.
That's right.
Yeah. She said, "Dan, you got to call the president." Straight on. And he took it. Right. Sorry. He said, "Thanks for calling. Letting me know. We'll try to work it out."
Right.
Senator, I want to ask, based on your experience, Director of National Intelligence, a senator, ambassador, as you just said, and your experience in foreign affairs and national security, what concerns you today when you look at the state of the world and all that's going on? What sticks in your mind as a concern?
We have a very unsettled world right now. We have wild bushfires going on in the Middle East and going on in Asia and across the world. We see presidents of nations being thrown out. The cultures are changing. There's a major change going on around the world, and some of those are pretty dangerous. And my concern is that some of those wildfires may turn into really something big, like wars. And so look at what's going on in the Middle East and across the globe.
The Ukraine.
And I think we're in a somewhat treacherous situation right now. The major change of culture in a number of our country, and I think in other countries. And I just every day I get up and think, what is the future going to look like if something goes bad? Now, Marsha would say, you always look at the negative first. And I think she probably might not.
Well, this is your area of expertise. I'm not going to argue with you on this one. Yeah. I think the world is a dangerous place.
Yeah. Our democracy, our military, but all these other fires that are there. It's if you read history, you see kind of you would be worried in terms of that. So I think we have to work our way out, and I hope we will. We've done before, and I think we'll have to do it again.
Well, sticking with the D&I area or theme, there are some lighter moments about that, even though the work was very serious, more serious than any other kind of work you can imagine, dealing with keeping the country safe. But one story I think the listeners might like hearing about the D&I years is maybe Marsha, if you could start, and Dan might take a bit, take it over from you, but share with the listeners the D&I's four-legged staff member that
the four-legged staff member
that would come visit,
who had her own badge.
Yeah,
this was our dog, Honey, a Wheaten Terrier, a soft-coated Wheaten Terrier who a much-loved dog, and when I would go to the offices of the Director of National Intelligence, which are located in McLean, Virginia, which is just about where we were living at that time, I often would bring Honey, because Honey liked to go wherever I went. And so I brought her so much that they took her picture, put it on a little pass card, hung it around her neck, as if she was an employee there. And the people in the office, it's a big, big building, 3 stories and lots of
6
offices. Well, yeah, there's 2 buildings actually. And they would save little treats in their desk and slip it to Honey as she would come by. So Honey loved going to work with Dan. And Dan found that if Honey was there in his office, it made him calmer, I guess you would say. You felt a little more at peace.
I would come home from the Oval Office after the briefings. I needed to settle down a little bit, and Honey came in and would lay right in under my desk, and it just kind of calmed me down because every day was coming out of the White House. It was, all we were talking about is what's going wrong, who wants to kill us, who wants to go after us, and what are the Chinese doing and the Russians are doing, and so forth and so on all these issues. And to come home with a big, okay, we got through that one, and Honey down there just really calmed me down.
Right. And fittingly, and it's in the book, Tim, and the readers will love it. And I should mention the book's available at Amazon. Just search From Generation to Generation or Dan Coats, and it'll pop right up. But fittingly, the official DNI portrait has Dan with Honey right by his side, which is a wonderful, fitting tribute for your
She's
partner
gone
during
now.
that. That's right.
And that's hanging on the wall at the DNI.
At DNI, which is wonderful.
And Honey is a part of it.
That's right. That's wonderful.
Senator, you mentioned the pressure of serving in that role as Director of National Intelligence and understanding at a much deeper level than the rest of us all the threats in the world and what was happening every day. And how did, as a person, because you're still a person, right? Even in that area of responsibility, how did you handle that day-to-day pressure and still maintain your equilibrium, your faith, your sense of personhood, dealing with all that ugliness and stress?
Well, I think God gave me the ability to basically get to our policymakers, starting with the president and then our top people. What has happened while you were sleeping last night? It's a 24/7, 365-day job, and where all of these 17 agencies are pulling things together from where they're collecting around the world and from up satellites and everything else, and bringing it down to what our policymakers, particularly the president and his group and his security and the military and others, they need to know what to do. I mean, what to collect so they know what to do. And so that's a day-to-day, 24-hour deal going on. My role was to make sure those 17 agencies were not politicizing. I told the president, Mr. President, if anybody politicizes anything, they're gone the next day. And I would go to agency and say, you have to just give the facts, don't politicize, do the best that you can. We're putting everything together. It was all 24 runs all night to get ready in the morning to spread out to the policymakers and people who knew to be security issues. I think I told everybody our faith of office was the most important thing going. And so it was a tough job, but I enjoyed the job. And
But remember when you started out, you were losing weight, you
Oh,
weren't sleeping,
Yes.
you were not doing well, you were very stressed. And you decided, and I encouraged you to get more exercise, eat more, sleep more. You needed to take care of yourself. And once you started doing that, it got better.
getting into a rhythm.
Yeah.
of
But
doing
you
it.
trusted the people at the ODNI.
I did.
They were wonderful, hardworking, dedicated staff, and you learned to depend on them.
I would go to each agency. They always come to me because I was the top guy over all that. Half of that was military, half of that civil. But I said, no, I'm coming to you. Bring your people who are sending this stuff. How are they doing it? I want to talk to them. We're like a team. I'm like the football coach walking up and down the sideline. And he's got an assistant here with the kicker, he's got an assistant with the front line, he's got so forth, and he's checking in. I'm just going. I said, that's me walking up and down the sideline. I'm going to all of you, saying, how's this happen? Mm-hmm. Are you doing this? This? Check. Call to me if you have a problem and something. So I tried to bring it together as one family or one team, right. And it worked. And I think we had some extraordinary people and directors right. of these agencies. And I stayed on top of them, told the president, Mr. President, when you brought me in, I took my Senate hat off, my policy hat goes in the closet. I'm now your D&I hat. And that's your intelligence hat. I'm going to try to give you the best intelligence we can give you. You make the decisions on the policy, mm-hmm. but we're putting it to you and all of your top people so that they know what's going on around the world and what they need to do.
Very good. Marsha, maybe it's best for you to start and again hand this one off to Dan, but Dan quips in the book that when asked by friends, family, if he resigned or if he was fired by President Trump, yeah. Dan always answers yes. Could you share with the listeners the story of the day Dan's time at D&I came to an end?
Okay. Yeah, it was both. In a way, he did offer to resign months ahead of the point at which you actually were let go. But President Trump didn't want to take your resignation. You were offering it because you felt like the two of them were not on the same page and were not working well together. And I thought it was the right thing to do, that you should offer to step down. But at that time, President Trump said, "No, I don't want you. I want you here." So, but one day, I think it was August or July, was
August.
It? Yeah. Well, it was midsummer, and the golf course that we had joined earlier was Lowe's Island. Donald Trump bought that course and renamed it Trump National. It is a beautiful 18 holes on the Potomac River in Northern Virginia. And we were playing golf there on a Sunday afternoon with our friends, the Silversteins. And we were in the clubhouse getting something to eat before we went out. And the president walks in, comes over to our table, and so we all stand up and we introduce him. And he seemed sheepish to me. That's the best word I can use to describe it. He didn't seem his same normal self, but I didn't think too much of it. And we went out and started playing golf. About 4 or 5 holes later, the guards, who are always with us when Dan was D&I, all the time, came. They were following us around the golf course, and they go out ahead of us too, so they make good four caddies. But they said it was just announced that Dan is being replaced, and I guess they thought that was earth-shaking. And they said, "What do you want to do?" And I looked at Dan. I said, "Well, we want to finish the golf. We're going to finish our 9 holes of golf, or 18, I don't remember." But we did finish the golf. And I think it wasn't shocking to either one of us. We knew it was coming. It was just a matter of time.
Well, we knew it was coming, but I thought it would be face-to-face.
Yes.
But my chief of staff was the one that got called. He said, and he picked it up from the
Twitter.
Yeah. And said, "This has just been published."
Right.
And so I was sorry that it couldn't be. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate your just the way it did.
Right.
I wished I could have said, thank you, Mr. President. But
Right.
there-
Didn't happen that way. I have one more. Do you have one more, Tim?
I have one more, and before we wrap up, leaders are often asked about their legacy, and if this is a question for both of you. What do you want people to remember about you? What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, I'm going to let Marsha start first, okay?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think our legacy will always be your career and what you did for Indiana as congressman, senator, primarily. That will be your legacy. And I hope people remember us as God-fearing people who represented Midwestern values and who valued family, number one, ahead of politics, but were conservative Republicans who loved the Lord and tried their best to follow his leading.
Well, I think I have to say that I think every step of the way I tried to do what I believe God wanted me to do. And he made doors to open and doors not to open. But to put my faith in him and lean not to my understanding, Proverbs 3:5, but acknowledge the Lord and he will direct your path. And so it's not Dan Coats who achieved this. It's Dan Coats hearing from God, this is where I want you to be. This is what your type of person you can be. And I realize that it's a lot of work for me to be the kind of person that he wants me to be, but I keep trying.
Yes. Well, thank you, Senator Coats. Thank you, Marsha. Thank you, Alan. Thank you for lives well lived and your service to our state and nation.
Thank you.
Sagamore Institute is an Indianapolis-based think tank focused on economic and educational opportunity, national defense, and civic health. To learn more about the issues discussed today, please visit sagamoreinstitute.org. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.